This is part 2, chapter 4, page 588, From Island to Island. Insects are also moved from island to island of the archipelago simply in solitary skiffs. This is called special convoy. It is the most unconstrained mode of transport. It can hardly be distinguished from free travel. Only a few prisoners are delivered in this way. I, in my own career as a prisoner, made 3 such journeys. This special convoy is assigned on orders from high officials. It should not be confused with the special requisition, which is also signed by someone high up. A special requisition prisoner usually travels on the general prisoner transports, though he too meets up with some amazing interludes on this trip, which are all the more extraordinary in consequence. For example, Hans Bernstein was traveling on a special requisition from the north to the lower Volga to join an agricultural mission. He was exposed to all the overcrowded conditions and humiliations I've described, snarled at by dogs, surrounded by bayonets, threatened with one step out of line, and then suddenly he was unloaded at a small station in Sensevatka, and met by one single, calm, unarmed jailer. The jailer, sorry. All right, you'll spend the night at my house, and you can go out on the town as you like till morning. Tomorrow I'll take you to the camp. And Ants did go out. Can you understand what going out on the town means to a person whose term is 10 years, who has already said goodbye to life countless times, who is in a Stolypin car that very morning and will be in camp the next day? And he immediately went out to watch the chickens scratching around in the station master's garden, and the peasant women getting ready to leave the station with their unsold butter and melons. He moved 3, 4, 5 steps to the side, and no one shouted at him, halt at him. With unbelieving fingers, he touched the leaves of the acacias and almost wept. And the special convoy is precisely that sort of miracle from beginning to end. You won't see the common prisoner transports this time. You don't have to keep your hands behind your back. You don't have to undress down to your skin, nor sit in the earth on your rear end. And there won't be any search at all. Your convoy guards approach you in a friendly way and even address you politely. They warn you as a general precaution that in case of any attempt to escape, we do, as usual, shoot. Our pistols are loaded, and we have them in our pockets. However, let's go simply. Act natural. Don't let everyone see that you're a prisoner. And I urge you to note how here too, as always, the interests of the individual and the interests of the state coincide completely. My camp life was totally transformed the day I went out to line up forlornly in the carpenter's brigade. My fingers cramped. They had gotten stiff holding onto tools and wouldn't straighten out. And the work assignment supervisor took me aside and with unexpected respect said to me, "Do you know that on orders of the Minister of Internal Affairs?" ? I was stupefied. The lineup dispersed and the trustees in the compound surrounded me. Some of them said, "They are going to hang a new stretch on you," and others said, "To be released." But everyone agreed on one thing, that there is no escaping Minister of Internal Affairs Kruglov, and I too swayed between a new term and being released. I had quite forgotten that a half a year before Some character had come to our camp and distributed GULag registration cards. After the war, they had begun this registration in all the nearby camps, but it seems unlikely that it was ever completed. The most important question on it was trade or profession, and the Czechs would fill in the most precious GULag trades to enhance their own value: barber, tailor, storekeeper, baker. As for me, I had frowned and filled in nuclear physicist. I had never been a nuclear physicist in my life, and what I knew of the field I had heard in the university before the war, just a little bit, the names of the atomic particles and their parameters, and I had decided to write down nuclear physicist. This was in 1946. The atom bomb was desperately needed, but I didn't assign any importance to that GULag registration card, and in fact forgot about it. There was a vague, unverified legend, unconfirmed by anybody, that you might nevertheless hear in camp, that somewhere in the archipelago there were tiny paradise islands. No one had seen them, no one had been there. Whoever had kept silent about them and never let on. On those islands, they said, flowed rivers of milk and honey and eggs and sour cream, or the least of what they fed you. Things were neat and clean, they said, and it was always warm, and the only work was mental work, and all of it super secret. Super secret. And so it was that I got to those paradise islands myself. In convict lingo, they are called sharashkas. I had spent half my sentence on them. It's to them I owe my survival, for I would never have lived out my whole term in the camp. And it's to them I owe the fact that I am writing this investigation, even though I have not allowed them any place in this book. I have already written a novel about them, and it was from one to another of those islands, from the first to the second, and from the second to the third, that I was transported on a special convoy basis, 2 jailers and I. If the souls of those who have died sometimes hover among us, see us, easily read in us our trivial concerns, and we fail to see them or guess at their incorporeal presence, then that is what a special convoy trip is like. You are submerged in the mass of freedom, and you push and shove with the others in the station waiting room. You absent-mindedly examine announcements posted there, even though they can hardly have any relevance for you. You sit on the ancient passenger benches, and you hear strange and insignificant conversation about some husband who beats up his wife or has left her, and some mother-in-law who, for some reason, does not get along with her daughter-in-law, how neighbors in communal apartments make personal use of the electric outlets in the corridor and don't wipe their feet, and how someone is in someone else's way at the office, and how someone has been offered a good job, but can't make up his mind to move. How can he move bag and baggage? Is that so easy? You listen to all this, and the goose pimples of rejection run up and down your spine. To you, the true measure of things in the universe is so clear, the measure of all weaknesses and all passions. And these sinners aren't fated to perceive it. The only one there who is alive, truly alive, is incorporeal you, and all these others are simply mistaken in thinking themselves alive. And an unbridgeable chasm divides you. You cannot cry out to them, nor weep over them, nor shake them by the shoulder. After all, you are a disembodied spirit. You are a ghost, and they are material bodies. And how can you bring it home to them? By an inspiration? By a vision? A dream? Brothers, people, why has life been given you? In the deep, stillness of midnight, the doors of the death cells are being swung open, and the great-souled people are this very minute, right now, are being dragged out to be shot. On all the railroads of the country this very minute, right now, people who have just been fed salt herring are licking their dry lips and with bitter tongues. They dream of the happiness of stretching out one's legs and of the relief one feels after going to the toilet. In Orotican, the earth thaws only in summer and only to the depth of 3 feet, and only then can they bury the bones of those who died during the winter. And you have the right to arrange your own life under the blue sky and the hot sun, to get a drink of water, to stretch, to travel wherever you like without a convoy. So what's this about unwiped feet? And what's this about a mother-in-law? And what about the main thing in life, all its riddles? If you want, I'll spell it out for you right now. Do not pursue what is illusory. Property and position, all that is gained at the expense of your nerves decade after decade, and is confiscated in one fell night. Live with a steady superiority over life. Don't be afraid of misfortune, and do not yearn after happiness. It is, after all the same. The bitter doesn't last forever, and the sweet never fills the cup to overflowing. It is enough if you don't freeze in the cold, and if thirst and hunger don't claw at your insides. If your back isn't broken, and your feet can walk, if both arms can bend, if both eyes can see, and if both ears can hear, then whom should you envy, and why? Our envy of others devours us most of all. Rub your eyes in purify your heart, and prize above all else in the world those who love you and who wish you well. Do not hurt them or scold them, and never part from them, any of them in anger. After all, you simply do not know. It might be your last act before your arrest, and that will be how you are imprinted in their memory. But the convoy guards stroke the black handles of the pistols in their pockets, and we sit there, 3 in a row, sober fellows, quiet friends. I wipe my brow, I shut my eyes, and then I open them, and once again I see this dream. A crowd of people unaccompanied by guards. I remember clearly that I spent a night in a cell and will be in a cell again tomorrow. But here comes some kind of conductor to punch my ticket. Your ticket. My friend, there it has it. The cars are full. Well, full in free people's terms. No one is lying under the benches and no one is sitting on the floor in the aisle. I was told to behave naturally, and I have been behaving very naturally indeed. I noticed a seat beside a window in the next compartment and got up and took it. And there were no empty seats for my guards in that compartment. They sat where they were and kept their loving eyes on me from there. In Parabury, the seat across the table from me was vacated, but before my guard could get to it and sit down, a moon-faced fellow in a sheepskin coat and a fur cap, with a plain but strong wooden suitcase, sat down there. I recognized his suitcase. It was a camp work, made in the archipelago. Phew, he puffs. There was very little light, but I could see he was red in the face and that he had a hassle to get on the train. And he got out a bottle. How about a beer, comrade? I knew that my guards were close to a nervous breakdown in the next compartment. I was not allowed anything alcoholic, but still, I was supposed to conduct myself as naturally as possible, and so I said carelessly, "All right, why not? Beer, it's a whole poem. For 3 years I hadn't even one swallow. And tomorrow in my cell I would brag, I got a beer." The fellow poured it. I drank it down with a shiver of pleasure. It was already dark. There was no electricity in the car. This was post-war dislocation. One tiny candle end was burning in an ancient lantern at the door, one for 4 compartments, 2 in front and 2 behind. I talked amiably with the fellow, even though we could hardly see each other. No matter how far forward my guard leaned, he couldn't hear a thing because of the clickety-clack of the wheels. In my pocket I had a postcard addressed to home, and I was about to explain who I was to my simple friend across the table and ask him to drop the card in the mailbox. Judging by his suitcase, he had been in stir himself. But he beat me to it. I just barely managed to get some leave. They haven't given me any time off in 2 years. It's a dog's branch of a service. What kind? Don't you know? I'm an MVD man. And Asmodeus. Blue shoulder boards. Haven't you ever seen them? Hell, why hadn't I guessed it right off? Parabori was the center of GULag, and he had gotten his suitcase out of the Zex. They had made it for him for free. How all this had permeated our life. 2 MVD men, 2 Asmodee weren't enough. In 2 compartments, there had to be a 3rd, and perhaps there was also a 4th concealed somewhere. And maybe they were in every compartment, and maybe someone else there was traveling by special convoy like me. My fellow kept on whining and complaining of his fate, and at that point I decided to enter a somewhat mystifying demurrer. And what about the ones you're guarding, the ones who got 10 years for nothing? Is it any easier for them? He immediately subsided and remained silent until morning. Earlier, in the semi-darkness, he had noticed I was wearing some kind of semi-military overcoat and field shirt, and he had thought I was simply a soldier boy. But now the devil only knew what I might be. Maybe I was a police agent. Maybe I was out to catch escapees. Why was I in this particular car? And he had criticized the camps there in my presence. But this time the candle end in the lantern was floating but still burning. On the 3rd baggage shelf, some youth was talking in a pleasant voice about the war, the real war, the kind you don't read about in books. He had been with a unit of field engineers and was describing incidents that were true to life, and it was so pleasant to realize that unvarnished truth was, despite everything, pouring into someone's ears. I could have told tales too, and I would have even liked to. But no, I didn't really want to anymore. Like a cow, the war had licked away 4 of my years, and I no longer believed that it had all actually happened, and I didn't want to remember it. 2 years here, 2 years in the archipelago had dimmed in my mind all the roads to the front. All the comradeship of the front line had totally darkened them. One wedge knocks out another, and after spending a few hours among free people, here is what I feel. My lips are mute. There is no place for me among them. My hands are tied here. I want free speech. I want to go back to my native land. I want to go home to the archipelago. In the morning, I deliberately forgot my postcard on an upper shelf. After all, the conductor will get around to cleaning up the car. She will carry it to a mailbox if she is a human being. We emerge onto the square in front of the northern station in Moscow. Again, my jailers are newcomers to Moscow and don't know the city. We travel on streetcar B, and I make the decisions for them. There is a mob at the streetcar stop in the middle of the square. Everyone is on the way to work at this hour. One jailer climbs up to the streetcar motorman and shows him his MVD identity card. We are allowed to stand imposingly on the front platform for the whole trip. as if we are deputies of the Moscow Soviet, and we don't bother to get tickets. An old man isn't allowed to board there. He isn't an invalid, and he has to board in the rear like the others. We approach Novoslovodskaya and disembark, and for the first time I see Butyrki prison from the outside, even though it's the fourth time I've been brought here, and I can draw its interior plan without difficulty. Oof, what a grim, high wall stretches for 2 blocks there. The hearts of the Muscovites shiver when they see the steel maw of its gate slide open. But I leave the sidewalks of Moscow beside me without regret, and as I enter that tower of the gatehouse, I feel I am returning home. I smile at the first courtyard and recognize the familiar main doors of carved wood, and it's nothing at all to me that they are now going to make me face the wall, and they already have, and ask me, last name, given name and patronymic, year of birth. My name? I am the interstellar wanderer. They have tightly bound my body, but my soul is beyond their power. I know, after several hours of inevitable processing of my body, confinement in a box, search, issuing receipts, filling out the admissions card, after the roadster and the bath, I shall be taken to a cell with 2 domes, with a hanging arch in the middle. All the cells are like that, with 2 large windows and a long combination table and cupboard. And I shall be greeted by strangers who are certain to be intelligent, interesting, friendly people, and they will begin to tell me the stories, and I will begin to tell them mine, and by night we will not even feel like going off to sleep right away. And the bowls will be stamped, so we shouldn't make off with them on the prisoner transport. The mark Butyr for Butyrskaya, Tyrma, Butyrki prison, the Butyr Health Resort, as we mocked it last time. A health resort, incidentally, where very little known to the paunchy bigwigs who want so badly to lose weight. They drag their stomachs to Kislovodsk and go out for long hikes on prescribed trails, do push-ups, and sweat for a whole month just to lose 4 to 6 pounds. And there, in the Future Health Resort, right near them, any one of them could lose 17 or 18 pounds just like that in 1 week without doing any exercises at all. This is a tried and true method. It has never failed. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a Merry Christmas tomorrow. Genuinely. Good night.